They think it's not a targeted attack, not terror-related, but it remains unclear whether or what the police knew of this man before this attack. Yes, so police were called to the area just before 7 a.m. with reports of multiple stabbings. Then videos circulated online and on social media of what we now know is a 36-year-old man dressed in a yellow hooded jumper, and he was carrying what looked like a samurai sword. Now, eyewitnesses then saw multiple police officers jump on the man once they were there. We know from the skirmish that 2 officers have sustained injuries that require surgery. They're both in hospital. Those injuries don't seem to be life-threatening. 2 other civilians were caught up as well. They have injuries that are non-life-threatening and are in hospital too. Police were called when the man's van smashed into a house, and we also heard reports from an eyewitness that the suspect and the police officers had a skirmish in a nearby alleyway, and there were shouts that said, "He stabbed her face." So a skirmish, yes. 5 injuries, and of course the horrific fatality of the 14-year-old boy.
There's been praise, Will, hasn't there, for those officers, the first responders, and from what you're saying, it was well earned.
Indeed, we heard there on your clip John Wes Streeting saying the emergency services have shown they're the best of us, and we heard from the emergency services in that statement in the last hour that police, ambulance and fire brigade were called out swiftly to the scene. The locals that we've spoken to today have said they became aware of an incident when a helicopter came overhead at around about 7 o'clock. And I think one of the most striking things in the panic of those we've spoken to who live in this area is just that there appears to be currently no link between the victims and the suspect. Police are not treating it as if there are any other suspects or there's any kind of links to other potential attackers. They think it's an isolated incident which they think they've contained, and the suspect is of course in hospital and has been arrested on suspicion of murder.
Right, you're standing there in front of a vehicle. Well, I can see a police tape, a cordon behind you, but are things pretty much returning to normal now? What is actually happening there?
Well, police have said there will be a continued sustained presence to work with those in the community. There was throughout the day around a dozen police cars and forensic cars. They have now cleared. The road has been closed for almost all of the day since that incident. Things seem to be on the surface returning back to normality. But as the locals today have told us, it is far from the case when it comes to those, particularly parents. I spoke to a mother of a 15-year-old boy, and she heard on a Facebook community group that a 15-year-old boy had been stabbed. It turned out to be that 14-year-old boy, and she thought it might be her son. She came to collect him from the school. That was Forest Academy, that's just to my right over the road, and she was absolutely shocked. I spoke to another mother who was similar. So definitely a palpable sense of concern and worry, but on the surface things returning back to normal as far as the street's concerned, but police will say they will remain in the area for the foreseeable.
And just lastly, the police are obviously limiting what they're saying, but they are saying they don't consider this to be a terror-related incident, are they? They're not answering questions such as, was this attacker known to police?
Yes, indeed. So they're not answering those questions because there has been speculation that he was known to police. They are not answering those questions. You're right, John. They say that this is an ongoing investigation that is moving rapidly. They're not able to question the man so far because he is in hospital. But what we do know is that they are taking this very seriously. It is the Met Police's priority at the moment. But as far as we know that they think it's not a targeted attack, not terror-related, but it remains unclear whether or what the police knew of this man before this attack.
Okay, and Will, you've been speaking, haven't you, to a local person there who wished to remain anonymous?
I feel absolutely devastated, especially as, it's just a 14-year-old boy going off to school and a random person attacks. It doesn't make you feel safe at all. I feel really sad for the child. I mean, before I thought it was maybe gang related because you normally hear of that, of kids unfortunately being stabbed because of being related to gangs. But hearing it's a random person, it's just scary. I do feel pretty scared now. Whereas when I first moved here, I thought it was a lovely family area. You know, there's so many schools in the area. There's lovely parks and forests, and I didn't really hear of anything. It's only recently I've heard of bad things. So apparently there was a shooting in a Metro's Chicken, which is literally just down the road there, or there was some guy with a shotgun, and that was cordoned off. And now this, I feel pretty frightened, especially because that could have been my son going to school. I know he's young now, but you know, when he's 13, 14, he could have been going to school and that could have happened to him. So yeah, I feel pretty scared.
Okay, it's a local resident talking to our reporter, Will Hobbs there. Let's get the thoughts of the Reverend Keith John now from Hainault Church. Hello to you, Reverend.
Good afternoon, John.
Welcome to the show. Can you just give us a little bit of an insight into this area, this neighbourhood? There's a local person there who said, was used to thinking of it as a pretty safe area to be around. How would you describe it?
I think that person was correct, John. It has, I think, over the years been a fairly quiet and safe place to live, and a good place to live with a closely knit community, and that's why I would think today's awful events have come as such a big shock to people.
Yeah,
they're not used to experiencing these kind of events in Hainault, I would say.
Well, a thing like this will shake up people in the neighbourhood naturally, won't it? I mean, have you seen that around the place, the area you know so well, Reverend John? Are people, I don't know, are they shaken by this awful event?
Yes, they are. I've not been able to get to the church at which I serve because that's within the cordoned off area. But I have been able to communicate by various means with lots of members of the congregation and other people in the community. And I would say that today's events have made them feel frightened. I've spoken to the parents of young children who weren't able to go to school today, for example, because their homes were within the cordoned off area. And the little children are very frightened. And I would say also that would be true of older members of our community. People who have lived here for many years and who are not used to witnessing and experiencing the kind of violence we've seen here today.
Yeah, so sad to see this young boy lose his life in this way. At the same time, it's possible, isn't it, that sometimes an awful event like this can bring a community together?
Yes, that's possible. And more than that, I would say that has to be the outcome of today's events. It's the role of the church, certainly of my role, to try and do that in any circumstances. And this is a very diverse society, community here in Hainault, and it's incumbent upon us now to bring people together with a real sense of community. And that's the job that we'll have to put our mind to over the coming days and weeks and months.
And the hope is that will happen. And while an awful attack of this nature will make people feel insecure, make people feel a bit more afraid maybe about the streets around them, there is comfort to be drawn, isn't there, from the way the police responded to this and intervened?
I've been very, very impressed by all the first responders today. I've seen them acting with great professionalism and with great courage, and I think we owe a deep sense of gratitude to all of them who have worked so professionally throughout the day.
All right, good. It's good to talk to you. Thank you for joining us, Reverend Keith John from Hainault Church. I want to just share with you some statements from the area. This is from the local council, Redbridge Council, who say this in a statement. We feel shocked at the news of this morning's attack in Hainault. Police have detained the suspect and we are supporting the police investigation. There are cordons in place in the area this morning, but police are not looking for anyone else in connection with the incident and have said there's no further risk to the local people. Hainault, says the local council, is a close-knit community and we know this will have shaken local people. Our thoughts are with all those affected and their family members. Now, let me just give you this as well from another local member of the clergy, the vicar of St Paul's in Hainault, the Reverend Sarah Clark-Moisley, who said the thoughts and prayers of everyone at St Paul's Hainault are with the victims of this morning's attack and their families. We're particularly praying for the family of the 14-year-old boy who tragically lost his life. This morning, says Reverend Clark-Moisley, I visited the area where the attack took place to offer support to people from the local community who are devastated by what's happened. We will be opening the church on Tuesday evening for anyone who wants to join us to say a prayer. So, well, the community coming together, as sometimes encouragingly is the case after an awful incident like this. And that's the latest from the attack in Hainault earlier today.